hello.
Oh, hello.
And welcome to the Comic Queens podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie. And today we are super excited to have you here. Maybe me even more so.
I think so. This is an episode we all knew was coming.
Yeah, if you are a part of the Manta Reddit, then you know. And if you are not part of the Manta Reddit, you probably should be. So get yourself added. But today we're going to be talking about a bit of a controversy in the Manta world. Which is Finding Camellia, novel versus comic.
Yes, we are. And this is Annie's favorite story.
What? Okay, the novel is my favorite story.
The novel is your favorite story. The comic has maybe deviated a little too much for you.
Yeah, I mean, and realistically, that's kind of where we delve in at this point. Because it's essentially my favorite. Mm-hmm. That novel is 128 chapters of absolute perfection. It is everything I want from a story. It actually has significantly more drama than I usually get into.
It is a little dramatic.
Yeah, there's like some actual heartbreak in there. Like there's so much conflict in the story. And so just flagging this ahead of the entire episode, if you have not read Finding Camellia, either the novel or the webcomic, this will have so many spoilers for you. So if you are wanting to read it first, please read the novel.
Read the novel.
Yeah, and then come back to us. Yes, because we want to discuss it with you. But essentially, do want to flag as well for readers, if you have not read Finding Camellia, the novel, it is actually only available on Manta until October 4th. So if you are wanting to read this and you're not wanting to read it, I believe on Riddy Books or something else, this is actually only available on Manta Comics until October 4th of this year. So you got to get kind of booking.
Yeah. I was surprised that they're taking it off, but it is the only novel on Manta.
I know. I do know that I had tried to participate in one of their surveys. Manta does put out surveys regularly for like their users to talk about the experience, how to improve it, etc. And it does kind of sound like there might be a push for more novels.
I hope so. I love the novels.
The novels are great. And I will say, like, I don't know if it was just because of the timing of when I found the Finding Camellia novel, but they uploaded the entire thing by the time I reached it. So I was able to read 128 chapters at my leisure.
Now, how many times have you read those 128 chapters?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I couldn't tell you, like, a for sure number, but it probably rhymes with Shmee. Or Schmore.
So 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times. Again, I just love it. The novel is wonderful and great. The characters are amazingly well written. I mean, it has so many different tropes in there. So if you like the yandere vibes, there's a character for you.
Yeah.
They did a really good job at making a villain that you love to hate.
They really did.
And so ultimately, like, Finding Camellia is just kind of one of those stories that actually scratches every itch.
And there's a ton of character growth through the whole thing because you follow them through their whole lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a pretty good one. But today, want to delve into this story with you. I would love to talk about just the progression of the novel and all of these different very impactful moments. And ultimately, then we'll kind of get into what has changed in the webcomic because it's very different.
It's also interesting to note that the webcomic is on hiatus this week and coming back next week. It's almost like they saw all of the weekly Reddit ravings of disappointment with some of the more recent chapters.
I may or may not have contributed to some of those ravings. I'll never tell. XOXO. But yes, I will say there have been a lot of posts of upset. Anyone who's read the novel knows it's a great story. Mm-hmm. Like, even you, romance isn't necessarily your favorite thing to read all the time.
Yeah, but I do love the novel. It's really good. It was gripping, and there's so many characters you love. Even, I mean, we all know my favorite character is not the main love interest.
Yeah, you're an Ian gal.
I am.
An Ian stan, if you will.
And I'm always a team main character, usually. But this is one where I would be team Ian if there were teams.
I mean, you can be wrong, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I'm team Ian Not for Camellia, because I don't want her to end up with Ian.
No, there's too much tomfoolery that goes on there in that relationship.
Yeah.
She and Claude, they're pretty perfect.
Yeah.
But essentially the stories, whether you're reading the webcomic or the novel, it's given off two different vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I am like a huge believer that if I had only read the webcomic, I would be fine with where the story was at.
Yeah.
It's just having that previous knowledge that's upsetting.
And there's a difference too between leaving things out to kind of speed the story along. That's something that happens in all media with books. Like when you're looking at a movie adaptation of a book, it's usually got a lot left out of it. And you just kind of have to be okay with that. Choices have to be made. Storylines have to be changed. Characters have to be left out because you just can't fit as much into a different media form as you can a book. But this is like things that are changing the actual the baseline of the story.
Yeah, the entire trajectory is off.
Yeah.
So, starting out, let's delve in and just talk about Finding Camellia in general as a story. The novel, again, is 128 chapters of just pure amazing content.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts out essentially with Camellia as this young girl who just lives in a very poor village outside of this very rich capital. And, you know, she lives with her mom, and it's kind of one of those things where ignorance is bliss. Like, she doesn't know a different life.
She's happy because that's all she knows, and she loves her mom, and she loves being with her mom.
Yeah, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Her mom, you know, works in a brothel, and it's very obvious that, like, Camellia, in her younger age, doesn't really understand what that is. But she lives in these slums, and she'd never know it. Her mom makes every effort to show her love and to make her feel, you know, cared for, etc. And so we kind of start out with this very like happy with what she has child of, I think, like 5 to 7 years old.
Mm-hmm,
quite
that's
young.
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Essentially, you know, one day she just has these people come and take her away and say that her mom did something terrible and that she has to go with them now.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically arrives at this huge manor of Anastasia Bale, who, you know, unbeknownst to her, is actually like her, I don't know, would you classify her as a stepmom?
I guess you would. You would have to because she's married to her dad.
Yeah. And you find out that her dad is essentially this viscount.
Mm-hmm.
He is a marquis, and he's very
powerful.
Very powerful.
His family is very close to the emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one son.
Yes, whose name is Kieran. And Kieran is sick.
Yeah.
Very, very sick. He has some, you know, disease. He's coughing up blood. He is weak in general.
Mm-hmm.
And though Kieran welcomes him with open arms, you know, Camellia is confused and scared and
doesn't
in this new
know
place.
why she's here. Doesn't know any of these people.
Yeah. Essentially, she ends up meeting up with Anastasia, who says, you know, your mom has committed this crime. What do you plan to do to fix it? Camelia's like, you have a mistake. My mom would never do that. She's a great person. And Anastasia essentially tells her she has to pay for her mother's crimes, cuts her hair off, and then basically gives her the, you know, foretelling of the entire story, which is, you are now Camelia's. You're not Camellia. You are a boy. You are my son.
Mm-hmm.
And basically gives her this entire script of a life she now has to lead aside from her own.
And the reason that they make her into a boy is so that Kieran will have a little brother to take the pressure off of him being the only sick son.
Yeah.
So it's basically just so that they can continue the line and know that no one is going to come for Kieran and try and take over the family lineage.
Yeah, essentially. So, you know, Gellard Bale, her dad, ends up coming back, welcomes Camellia with open arms, but referring to him as Camelius. Mm-hmm. So you kind of get an understanding that he knows what's happening a little bit. And essentially you just kind of see Camellia growing up around Kieran and his friends. So he has Claude, And, you know, Rosina, the princess, is there.
Prince Wade, everyone's favorite.
Prince Wade, who's beautiful and wonderful. And essentially, Claude starts taking a special interest in Camellia. It's confusing as a child to go, I'm best friends with this boy, and I'm now just for the first time meeting his brother, who's like 5 to 7 years old.
Yeah, Camelius just shows up one day and all of the friends are like, this is interesting. This is new. We don't get a lot of new stuff going on around us. Like, let's see what happens here.
Yeah. So it is very, very interesting for Claude. And automatically, Camellia or Camelius doesn't act like everybody else. Like, Camellia is standing outside trying to catch snowflakes with her mouth because every child would do that. And it just like ingrains something in Claude's mind of like, Camelius is different. Like something about Camelius, essentially. So, you know, you kind of fast forward through this time. Camellia is, again, still Camelius. You know, she starts attending this university. And, you know,
it's interesting because she gets the opportunity to go to the university and she wouldn't have that had she been raised as a girl. Like, it's only for the sons in the wealthy families who get to do this. So while this is something that has upended her whole life and makes it difficult for her, it's also something that gives her opportunities that she wouldn't have and really, really shapes her character later on.
Yeah, it really does shape that internal conflict of, I hate this role I've had to play.
Yeah.
But this is who I am. Like, it has shaped me. This has been the majority of my life now. I've had to pretend to be somebody else. And at what point is it pretending?
Yeah.
You know, because at a certain point you are you. You know, she's afforded the liberties of being able to talk to other men like they're equals.
Yeah.
And essentially it really does give her that headstrong nature that really makes Camellia a compelling character.
Yes, definitely.
So, you know, moving forward, she starts attending the university. Claude is also there as essentially like a graduate who's like...
Is he in his last year or has he already graduated?
So he's already graduated, but he's kind of working with like the Night Watch and with like the emperors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And recently there have been attacks on noble women who are, you know, like just essentially getting targeted for being wealthy, etc. You have Marilyn Selby, who, you know, they grew up together and everyone assumes that they're betrothed.
It's funny because she is one of the villains of the story.
Yes.
But it's been a while since she's been around. You almost forget about her in the more recent episodes of the webcomic.
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially there are some things that happen and we'll touch on it here soon. But Marilyn does kind of make her own bed. Her character goes away for a good reason. So essentially, you know, Claude ends up approaching Camelius saying, you look uncannily like a woman. Like, you're very feminine in your features, you know, you're very slight. And we're trying to catch this person who's targeting, you know, women of noble lineage. Will you help us essentially like do this? Or actually, I don't even think it's Claude. Like, somebody else approaches Camellia.
It's one of the professors, I think, or a police officer or something.
Yeah.
Someone comes and Claude does not want her to do it.
Yeah, because it's dangerous and he's very protective of Camelius.
Yeah.
Like, very early on, you can tell he's very intrigued by Camelius.
There's even earlier when they're going and learning to shoot guns and he's protective of Camelius then too. Like, so he's kind of always had this protection over Camelius.
Yeah. And I think it's just because very early on, I mean, you have this knowledge of this person who seems frail and isn't growing up like the other boys that you're hanging around with. And so he does take this protective stance over Camellia, which is great when they're growing up, but it does kind of create a different dynamic when they're, you know, older and their relationship is, you know, forming, etc.
Yeah.
So anyways, what they end up doing is creating this plot to catch whoever's doing this by having Camelius dress up as a woman, which in itself is very ironic. But Camelius does this, and when they dress up, Claude notices that she looks very similar to a girl that he saw when going into the slums to try to find this person previously. Mm-hmm. And it was Camellia. Camellia was herself going to investigate and try to find her mother.
Yeah.
And Claude happened to run into her, and she scurried away, of course, just knowing, like, no, this person possibly couldn't figure out that I'm a girl, because that ruins everything Anastasia worked so hard to build. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they basically get to put on this little act. You know, Camelius is now dressed up as Camellia in this, you know, attempt to find whoever is attacking all of these noble women.
And everyone's shocked, too, when they see Camelius dressed up as a woman. They're like, oh, wow, this is unexpected.
Marilyn immediately feels threatened. Mm-hmm. Marilyn is supposed to be the one who has captured Claude's heart. They're, like, everything but betrothed at this point.
Yeah.
And she sees the way that Claude looks at Camellia, and it makes her uneasy. And now when she's looking at Camellia, she goes, well, yeah, I understand why it makes it uneasy. He's a beautiful woman. He makes a beautiful woman. So This is very confusing. So they end up, you know, long story short, catching the people who are doing this. They are residents of Louvre who apparently have an agenda against all of these noble families because they come from a better position financially, etc. Look down on the people in the slums. And, you know, once they catch them, Claude is like, this ends now. This is done. You know, Camelius is no longer going under, you know, this disguise, but he kind of can't shake the idea of Camelius as a woman. And so he starts to get these feelings of like, am I gay? Mm-hmm. It's like a huge part in the beginning of the story of he is trying to reconcile his own feelings of, I'm not interested in other men. I'm only interested in Camelius.
Yeah.
Why is this? Why am I so drawn to him? And having his own internal conflict while essentially just kind of falling victim to it.
He's not really interested in any other women either. Mm-mm. He's only interested in Camelius.
Yeah. And so he just kind of has this internal conflict of what does this mean for me? What does this mean about me, etc.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you know, as they're adults, Kieran is staying over in the neighboring country, which is currently kind of a rival. So they have some weird relations with Gaior.
And the reason that he was sent there is because they have really good doctors. And he was sick, so that's why he went to live there.
Yeah. Essentially, Gellard and Anastasia kind of look at this as an opportunity to build a rapport with the neighboring kingdom that is already kind of on a rocky relationship. Corsor and Gaior don't really get along very well, which we can see later on in the novel. But essentially, you have Kieran who's sitting there and growing up and talking to Ian, who is a Gaiorian prince, and they're staying with them. And essentially, he and Ian build this relationship where Kieran feels he can openly talk to Ian about things.
Yeah.
He's like, I have space from my kingdom, etc. I'm homesick. I want to talk about my life. And he ends up slipping to Ian that he has a sister. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, this does not work very well for the dynamic that they're trying to set up. And Kieran's like, I wish I could be in touch with Camellia. I have these letters. I'm planning on going back to Corsor soon, and we haven't been in touch. And Ian goes, I'll deliver it for you. And Ian immediately sees Camelius just, out and about, I believe at a sweets shop. Camelius has a very strong sweet tooth. And Ian goes, Camellia, I would know you anywhere. You look just like Kieran. You're beautiful, and I would never mistake you. And so Ian immediately is infatuated, knows that Camelius is kind of this facade that they've built up.
Yeah.
And that Camelius is actually a woman. And Ian makes some very frowned upon advances.
I love him.
In taking advantage of the fact he knows that she's a woman. So you kind of have these two characters, both in love with Camellia or Camelius, but one has the background knowledge of who Camellia is.
Yeah.
The other does not. And so Claude is conflicted about his feelings. Ian is very open, but only because he has the comfortability of knowing that Camellia is a woman.
Yeah.
No matter what she's dressing like or pretending to be, she's a woman. So essentially everything kind of pops off with the fact that there are these huge balls. Kieran is now engaged to the princess. And essentially, Camillus is kind of kept outside of all of these events. Anastasia makes it clear, like, oh, Camillus is sick, can't come. And it's just in an effort to keep Camillus as separated as possible.
Yeah.
There's always this hanging promise of, if you do well in pretending to be Camillus, if you do well in school, etc., give the Baal name, just like some strong standing, then eventually we'll let you go back to your mom.
It's just until Kieran gets married, right? Like, that's how long it has to be, and then she can be free is what they say.
Well, Anastasia says you can be free. The ultimate decision is we get to stage your death.
Yeah, so freedom comes with a price.
Freedom comes with a price. You have to essentially kill off this
your
character
identity.
Who became your most recent identity.
Yeah.
And you have to become a woman again, but you have to kill off Camillus, who is really who you've been your entire life.
Yeah.
So there are all these conflicting feelings, obviously, around this. Kieran is better now and obviously engaged to the princess. And so there's not really as much need for Camillus, but now that he's been around for so long.
You can't just like say, oh, he's gone now.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ian just kind of is, the devil on Camillia's shoulder of like, do you expect to live as this man your entire life? Come back with me to my kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
These disgusting people would have you live as someone you're not. And, Camellia stands her ground. She gets to live her life as this, man to everybody else's perception. And she's just like, who am I at the end of the day? Like, I don't know. Like, I want to go and see my mom. I know, like, very baseline things. Like, I want to be reunited with my mother. I want all these different things for myself. But ultimately, like, I've gotten a great education. I'm extremely smart. I've gotten to apply myself. And there's all this conflict internally. But Kieran and Rosina are now engaged. They throw a ball. And Camillus is not invited, which upsets Claude. And he ultimately says, you either come with me and I'll give you a private viewing, or I'm not going. Which can't happen because he is Kieran's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately he takes Camellia to this private room to view the party from the palace. And it's like Claude's little secret hideaway from when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And, he goes down to the party, etc. Well, Marilyn Selby had seen Claude and Camillus together in that room and ultimately comes up to confront Camillus and say, like, my suspicions have overtaken me. You need to prove to me that you're not a woman. Like, I've seen you with that wig on. It is too convincing. And starts ripping away at Camillus's clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So Camillus pins her to the bed, says, you have to stop this. And ultimately, right as they're doing this, Marilyn slaps him and creates this fake story that Camillus had attempted to have his way with her.
Yeah.
She thinks this will give her a way better standing. Claude and Ian burst in, and Claude essentially dismisses Marilyn and says, you need to go and get this checked. And she goes, well, are you going to come with me? And he's like, I think you should go by yourself. Ian is obviously very upset. He's like, people who lie that easily get their tongues cut off in Gaior. And obviously has the background knowledge that, of course, Camillus wouldn't do this because Camillus is a woman.
Yes.
But again, we're working off of very limited knowledge. And essentially, this is the moment where Claude just goes, I don't care if you're a woman, a man, an animal. I'm like, I love you. Like, you're the person I want. I want Camillus. And they share their first kiss. So, pivotal moments. It is so wonderful that they're able to kind of express their feelings. Camillus and Claude go through this huge conflict, essentially, of I'm interested in men, but not really because I'm only interested in you. Mm-hmm. And Camellia kind of sees that there's this regret with Claude's voice where he's just not sure of himself.
And she's also confused of, is he interested in me because I'm a man?
Yeah, because obviously I'm not a man. You'll be disappointed when you find out.
Yeah.
And so ultimately all of this takes a pause when Claude's father is killed by poisoning at this party.
Yes.
Claude essentially takes up arms against Gaior because it is decided that Gaior is the kingdom that had attacked his father.
Mm-hmm. Ian is on the run.
Ian's now on the run, and essentially a war breaks out. And before Claude leaves, he goes to visit Camillus, who is completely distraught and is sick with a fever. And he puts him down in his mind, and has her maid look after her. And when he realizes he has time before leaving for the battlefield, ends up trying to take care of him, and ultimately sees Camillus in a night dress and sees, an outline of what there is to offer there.
Sees that she is a woman.
Yes, essentially. And, is shocked, confused, upset that his best friend would hide this from him. And essentially is then able to make a very clear decision in his mind of, this isn't conflicting feelings. I'm in love with a woman. So
all the pieces are coming together.
All the pieces come together. So Claude leaves for war. He left this very important brooch called the clematis at, her villa. And Camellia wakes up to see this and says, oh gosh, he must have dropped this. I'll keep it safe.
And the brooch is a symbol of who he is going to marry.
Yes. It is essentially the symbol of the Duchess of his house.
So he's supposed to give it to the person that he's going to marry.
Yeah. So she keeps it safe. There end up becoming all of these rumors once Marilyn just understands that, her father's now being accused of treason as potentially having, committed crimes against the Grand Duke and participating with the Gaiorian kingdom to have the Grand Duke killed.
Yes.
And so to get all of the eyes off of her essentially makes that claim again that Camillus attempted to have his way with her. And so Rosina is very confused. This is my friend, Marilyn.
Because Marilyn is like one of her best friends since they were children.
Yeah. And so she goes, we'll have to look into this. Essentially, Camillus is then given the opportunity to go and take a letter from Rosina to Claude to, clear up the misunderstanding because Marilyn says that Claude was a witness to this. And essentially, going to the battlefield, they do have these beautiful, passionate moments that they're able to have together, though limited because they are on a battlefield. And Claude had been injured, but, he's able to express how much he loves her and cares about her. And she's able to say, I return your feelings, etc. But once the letter is taken back to Rosina, the only response is, Camillus is the holder of my clematis. And so...
But also doesn't say that she's a woman.
No. So at this time, Rosina now knows. She goes, I don't know how that means, but what I do know is that Camillus, he has zero doubts about Camillus, essentially, and that his honor is still intact. Because Claude would never support somebody who would do something like that.
Yeah.
So Marilyn is then cast aside from noble society and just becomes, again, like this pariah. Like, who is she? The war continues to rage on. And once it comes to a close, the academy opens back up. Camellia spends her time sending letters to Louvre to attempt to get in contact with her mom. Because realistically, as the war draws closer to an end, Kieran's going to be getting married. And then she has to decide if she's killing off Camillus or not. And so she's trying to find her mom, sending these letters. They either get returned completely unopened or, they're gone and then she never gets a response. And essentially, as the war starts drawing to a close, Kieran essentially expresses to Rosina, I know this didn't happen between Marilyn and everything. I know you're confused as to why Claude would have so much faith in Camillus. And then Camellia just kind of comes out and says, I'm a woman. I couldn't do this. I'm a woman. Rosina has a heyday, is so excited to have a little sister.
Yes.
And is dressing her up every day, has her visit the palace. And essentially is I want you to be able to debut in society and show people that you're this woman and be your own person. And, Camillus is still so conflicted about this story. So... she's kind of trying to come to terms with what she wants to do. And ultimately, when the war ends, Rosina's like, you have a place to be here at the palace. Stay here. This is your home. You're my family. And essentially, there's one night Camellia had just spent time, kind of drinking some champagne and enjoying the fact that she now has this room in the palace and a great friend in Rosina. And, as she goes to like take this lavish bath in this palace, and she's like, gosh, what kind of a life am I leading now? She ultimately has what she can't really decipher if it's a vision or not, of Claude dropping his clothes to the floor and joining her. Mm-hmm. And so essentially she has what she thinks might be a raunchy dream-like state of just like an entire night of passionate sex with Claude. To which she's again like very confused, like, did this actually happen? It felt so real. I want this to happen. I'm not one to have these kinds of dreams.
Also, she may have had a little too much champagne.
Yes, so a little bit of dubious stuff going on there, but ultimately everybody was very interested. And so ultimately, the next day is the arrival ceremony for the prince, and, you have Wade coming back and Claude and everybody. And once the ceremony starts, when everybody's giving each other hugs, Gellard Bale and Kieran Bale and Anastasia are all in an embrace, and they leave Camellia out. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of solidifies to her, like, this is my relationship with my family. It's still estranged. Like, I'm not a part of this moment.
Yeah.
And so, in that moment, in the homecoming, Claude immediately comes up to her, covers them with the cape, and kisses her passionately, to which Camellia is taken aback and goes, you can't possibly do this. And he just goes, you did not hold back last night. I don't know what you're talking about. And she becomes extremely embarrassed in front of all of these people, etc. So at the ball, she ends up going to the terrace. Claude follows after her. They share some passionate kisses. And she's like, this is all just so overwhelming, etc. This is very weird. And she storms back to her room in the palace, and you find out that this is actually Claude's room in the palace as well. And so they spend a very passionate night together. As soon as they do, you can see that Camellia has bruises all over and is just kind of ashamed of her body and how she looks. And Claude storms off.
And the bruises are because she wears binding to hide the fact that she's a woman.
Yeah, which obviously through time becomes increasingly more difficult.
Yeah.
When you have more to hide. So Claude becomes enraged, immediately goes, I can't possibly fathom how somebody could do this to somebody.
Yeah.
And essentially punches Kieran in the face, says, have you known that this is what's going on? Have you seen how destroyed her body is? She will no longer live as this man. Like, I will be taking care of her from now on. This is absolutely asinine. Mm-hmm. And after going back to the room, he sees Camellia trying to scrub the bruises away in the shower, and she's just completely ashamed. And Claude essentially tells her, like, I didn't storm off because I'm upset at how you look. I stormed off because I'm so upset at what people have done to you. I'll never let them do that to you again. And ultimately forces her to look at herself and the passionate moment that they're sharing together, because he's like, I want you to see how beautiful you are to me. And so look in this mirror and you'll see that for yourself. Mm-hmm. So ultimately it comes to the decision. Camellia decides to, at this grand ball, spend the night with Claude for a few days. And ultimately coming out, finds out that she is now framed for robbing her family, or staging a robbing of her family for these palace crystals. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely asinine, obviously, and she had no part in it because she had spent days with Claude. And ultimately, they find out that this is all being staged by Anastasia Bale and by the different faction in Louvre, who is trying to kind of frame Camellia and bring her back to Louvre, while also convincing her to bring like all of the perks of nobility, the money and everything with them, mm-hmm. to help kind of fund the slums, essentially, that she's from. And so she has a choice, essentially, go back to Louvre, be a part of this life. I see that my mom is living there and I could live there too. Or, do I stay in this nobility with Claude? Can I stay in this nobility with Claude if I'm from the slums? And again, just kind of that identity crisis of who actually am I? Like, which side am I on? Because it's hard to be on both sides. And so ultimately, like, Claude does all these things to try to step in and protect her. And Camellia is a strong ass bitch. She's like, I protect myself. So ultimately, she's like, no, we'll find evidence. It's whatever. Claude is kind of following in her footsteps to remedy this situation. And it comes out that it's being staged by Anastasia because she wants Camelia's gone. Mm-hmm. So that brings us to where we're at in the current story, essentially, where in the webcomic, things are starting to deviate. And this is, I think, where everybody's problem starts to come in.
Mm-hmm. I think the problem really started with the bathtub scene where it didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I mean, in the scene, Camellia did have too much champagne and everything else. But when Claude shows up, there was a significantly larger amount of clothes on.
Mm-hmm. Which it is an R15 app. But still, like, if you think about I've Become the True Villainess, they could have done something like that.
Yeah. I mean, we have read plenty of webcomics on the Manta platform that do show a little bit more, than people fully clothed just sharing a kiss.
Yeah.
When the actual scene is significantly more spicy.
Well, it just changes the whole plot point.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think I was able to, I was upset, but I was able to reconcile it.
Yeah.
But starting from this point, the story kind of changes. Mm-hmm. There were small details that changed, like wordings, like, I adore you, or I don't care if you're a man or a woman.
Or I like you versus I love you, even in that one scene at war.
Yeah. And so ultimately, there are these small moments that did change, but starting from that prologue scene in the webcomic is really where it starts to deviate.
Yeah.
And so, starting from that point, obviously, they can't show everything in an R15 webcomic version. But essentially, in the scene where Camellia is trying to scrub her bruises away, they do show significantly more, and it's not inappropriate.
Yeah.
And they do have the prologue scene, and so there was almost that glimmer of hope that they would kind of get themselves back on track from the bathtub scene, because they did show, Camellia and Claude on this, this couch enjoying their time together. They did show, her sitting in the bath, essentially hunched over and upset about her bruises, showing the bruises on her back, etc. And then it kind of takes a turn. The story in general, now, people who have read the book have very differing opinions on Claude as a character, for example. Mm-hmm. Some think that he's wonderful and great, such as me. Others see him...
named Annie.
Yes. Some see him as very controlling. And I will say that in reading the novel, I don't see that controlling nature as much in the novel as I do in the webcomic.
Yeah. But it's just you get more context, I guess, around his behavior that kind of helps offset the fact that he is controlling. But that's part of his trope.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to be a yandere and just let somebody else do whatever they want.
Yeah.
It is that controlling to a fault, that really kind of sets the trope apart. And, Claude does have controlling moments. I think it starts from the very moment that Claude sees Camellia as somebody he needs to step in and protect. Mm-hmm. In the novel, however, you do see Camellia kind of pushing away that help very often.
She does. And that's what I love about her in the novel.
Yeah. In the novel, she is such a strong character. And again, it kind of gravitates back towards the fact that her entire life has shaped her.
Yeah.
The experiences she's been through, she would not have had as many opportunities, even if she was kidnapped and then forced to be Camellia in a different family. Mm-hmm. It was the fact that she was forced to be a man that allowed her to build up her confidence and her charisma and just be able to stand up for herself to these other men because she was able to be mentally on the same page. She was afforded the same education. She's top of her class.
And she's always been able to do that. Like, she was raised being on their same level, whereas the women in the society were not.
Yeah. So it really is like, it's almost stealing away part of her character to sit there and have these moments where, you know, in the web comic, you have Camellia slinking behind Claude and letting him kind of take over this entire narrative and situation, you know, and ultimately in the novel, it's nothing like that.
They're more equal. They're on equal footing in the novel.
I mean, as much as Claude tries to step in and always wants to keep her safe, you know, he does do so to a fault, especially in the novel. But, you know, you do see Camellia just going, no, I'm taking ownership of this situation. Somebody's trying to frame me. This is my mess to clean up.
Yeah.
You know, and Claude is there to support her. But ultimately, she shows herself as such a strong character that she won't allow Claude to take ownership of the situation and step in for her. But I think the conflict really comes in with the most recent episodes where Claude and Camellia are having conversations that they're supposed to have just before their wedding.
Yeah.
So essentially, the letters debacle is where all of this kind of comes to a head, which is you find out that Rosina has withheld all of these letters that Camellia was trying to send during war times to Louvre. Because, one, all letters and communications with Louvre were being monitored during the war. And when Rosina realized how important Camellia was to Claude, she didn't want anything to come back on him or Camelia's.
And she thinks that if people know where Camelia's from, then she won't be able to be a part of their society.
Yeah. And so, you know, Rosina obviously makes the wrong move, but essentially withheld all of these letters.
Yeah.
In the novel, Claude is given an opportunity to tell Camellia about these letters and instead keeps them to himself. He withholds the letters. He plans on maybe eventually burning them, you know.
Yeah, he had no intention of telling her.
No.
Really.
And ultimately, like, it is a huge point of contention. But when this is happening in the novel, Camellia is already in the North with him.
Yeah.
She's already agreed to leave. She's already come out as a woman and put herself out there. You know, her background from Louvre has already been exposed.
She's finding who she is in the North, too.
And ultimately, she's like, I'm finding who I am, but now I'm finding that some of my most intimate and important relationships with the people that I love have all of these secrets and lies behind them. And it is terrifying for her. She's agreed to marry Claude. She's meeting Claude's family. And now she's having to, you know, uphold her dignity while trying to build herself up as a woman in society because she's lived as a man. And so just as she's starting to try to fit into this new role that she has to play.
And she does get to see in the North, I love Claude's mom and how she is involved in volunteering and she's so involved with the North and like running the North. And so Camellia sees, okay, I don't just have to be this party attending high society wife. I can be Camellia and still be who I am and want to help others and be smart and strong and independent. And so that is part of my favorite. And that could still happen, but it doesn't feel like it's going to happen right now.
I know. It feels very daunting. And it's not setting us up for a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Essentially, everything that's happening is happening out of order, or they're taking these moments out or changing these words that essentially change like the meaning and the trajectory of the story. Like Camellia finding out before going to the North about these letters and Claude telling her up front, that's not how it happens. And it really does like shape their characters.
Yeah.
Like Claude, this is his moment where he's like, who am I? Why am I this controlling? why did I think that I could keep this from my future wife? Like, what am I thinking? Am I pushing her away? You know, does she still love me? Like, what I did was wrong. And instead, it changes the entire moment.
He's kind of absolved of that.
Yeah.
In the webcomic.
And I mean, I love Claude as a character, but I love Claude as a character in the novel. I love the flawed Claude who believed that he should keep that from his wife because he thinks that that's his idea of keeping her safe. And I love Camellia putting him in her place, like putting him in his place.
Yeah. Saying that's not your decision to make.
It's not your decision to make. I can understand why Rosina kept the letters, but I can't understand why you kept that from me. Like, when you found out we're supposed to be partners, we're supposed to work together, how am I supposed to trust you?
Yeah.
I've had secrets my whole life, and they shouldn't come from you. And it's a real moment of, like, what in the world was I thinking? Nobody's perfect. Painting Claude as this, like, perfect man takes away from his actual character and his growth and the growth of their relationship and the hurdles they've been through together. It just is so upsetting to me that they're doing this. And then ultimately, something else that everyone else is upset about, including myself, is that instead of, you know, saying, you are my clematis, they change the wording to, like, I love you.
Yeah. Which, it's just such a good moment. I think that is less about changing the actual storyline and more just that is one of my favorite moments. It's such a good moment in the novel, and you just want to see that actualized, and it doesn't show up the way that you want it to, and that makes it hard.
You feel robbed of a moment.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. Saying I love you in everything that Camellia has been through, like, Ian also loves Camellia in his own way, but Ian was not willing to sacrifice his reputation for Camellia, essentially. Like, he goes, once you come out as a woman, you can move to Gyor with me. And, like, pushes Gellard to essentially, like, let Camellia debut as a woman so that he can be in a relationship with Camellia. And Claude, he just openly says, I was with Camelius all night. Like, he doesn't care about his reputation. He is selfless in his love for her. But saying, I love you, you can love somebody and not be willing to put your reputation on the line. In telling Camelius, you are my clematis, he's showing, like, he's all in. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to debut to society. You are going to be with me. We're together in this. Like, you are the future Duchess of my nation. Whether you're Camellia, I don't care. Like, you are my person. And, like, it changes that moment significantly.
It does.
It ultimately, like, one, I think it comes down to the webcomic is beautiful. It's great to put the imagery with the story. And that's part of what's so great about having that dynamic of a story turned into a webcomic.
Yeah.
Is that you get to see somebody's artistic interpretation, but I don't think that the interpretation should be so much that it changes the story.
Leaving things out is different than actually changing the storyline, I think. And that's the problem we're running into.
I know. It's a very sad one. I will say, like, I still love reading the webcomic, and I know that there's that fear in my heart that this will be another one that goes on hiatus just indefinitely and ultimately never comes back.
Right now it says it's coming back on September 30th.
Yeah, but hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Manta Comics. We've seen that happen now with a couple different stories. So,
and then it goes on hiatus for longer.
Like Love Jinx had gone on hiatus now indefinitely. And actually quite a few stories as of recently have just gone on hiatus. There are a few that I've wanted to start called, like, My Boyfriend is a God and Spun Together. And these are some webcomics that ultimately have just gone on hiatus for, you know, could be for multiple different reasons.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to be this.
I know. And I have to tell, so usually we do prep and, you know, write down a couple of things that we want to make sure that we mention when we're talking about stories. I need you all to know that Annie has told that detailed description from pure memory. This is I know that you say there are other stories that you love, but this is your favorite story.
This is my favorite story. I know this one so well only because it touches in so many different like emotions. And it sounds so ridiculous because I do have like an emotional connection to this story, but like the way that they built the characters in 128 chapters, it's a long time to get to know characters in the story. And they just do such a good job at really relaying the character for every single person in the story. Like, you see all of the struggles that Camellia is going through. You see Ian, you know, making his moves and being this quirky, witty person. And ultimately, like, you see Claude just falling head over heels for her as a person.
Yeah.
Not like whatever gender or whatever else is assigned to her. Just the person here in front of me who exists is the person I want to spend my life with. And ultimately, like, who hasn't had an identity crisis at some point in their life? But Camellia, like, this story is the epitome of an identity crisis. And it's a fabricated one. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But every moment is gripping. If you have not read the novel, or
Please
if you have
do.
read the novel, read it again. It's going away on Manta on October 4th. Feel free to read the story and just kind of, you know, revel in those amazing moments that the author spent a lot of time creating and now are getting butchered in the webcomic.
Now, here's my final question to you. Will you be rereading again before it goes?
Yes. 100% yes. I have like a billion other things on my to be read list, but because it's going away.
You have to. You have to put everything else on pause, read it one more time.
I know.
Maybe twice.
Maybe twice for good measure. 3 times. 3rd time's the charm.
Every day until it's off.
I will say it is, I mean, you know, just in books and everything in general, it is something I can continue coming back to and enjoying it every time. There is just so much different stuff going on. It keeps you gripped the entire time.
Yep.
Highly recommend. If you're only reading the webcomic, I don't know if I can recommend that you read the novel, only because your heart will be broken if you get to this point that we're at. However, I do know that in some of the webcomics that we read, such as Semantic Error and Whispers Through the Willows, occasionally artists go back and change different wordings, etc., in the comics after they've been posted.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if they're going to kind of go back and like
and change some things.
Redo some things.
Maybe.
I
wonder if they do, if they'll post about it or if it'll just be subtle, like for the future reader.
Yeah, I'm honestly not quite sure. I think it would be important, I think, for the development of this story and just for how many people are so upset by everything, to kind of give that like open communication of we've redone this.
Yeah.
Now, not sure if they will or if they're just going to try to make it more true to the story moving forward.
Yeah.
But I'm having a hard time believing that where they're at right now is not going to continuously impact the story moving forward.
It'll be interesting to see.
I know. So, and you know, Manta, if you want to go back to Semantic Error and change the part where Sangwoo ultimately tells Jae-young that he loves him back to saying I love you instead of I like you.
I'm so glad that we read almost everything as soon as it comes out. So we saw before it was changed to I'm falling for you.
Yeah. I'm falling for you. Doesn't make as much sense to run away from that as
No.
I love you. We've all been just, you know, a little bit embarrassed by the emotions we put out there. But, you know, I'm falling for you. Not nearly as impactful as I love you. But also, they deserve happiness.
They do.
Maybe we'll delve into that story another time.
We will have to.
But thank you all so much, including Alex again, for listening to my ramblings about one of my favorite stories.
It's only been the 100th time, but if anyone knows where we can get a copy of the novel
printed,
please let us know. It would make a wonderful Christmas gift for me to give Annie.
Yes. And I would gladly accept it. Alex, I love you. Not your my clematis. Oh goodness. But anyways, thank you so much again for listening to my ramblings about one of my favorite stories. Next time we do a deep dive into one of these, hopefully it can be a bit more on the nose. Maybe it can be about, I don't know, something that Alex loves, like No Moral.
Maybe.
Especially since there is that
novel comparison.
Novel
we need
to
to
webcomic.
let that one get a little further into the story, I think, because at this point in No Moral, compared to where this point would be relative to Finding Camellia, I think it was still staying pretty true.
Yeah.
So
Well, I hope
see.
for your sake that they don't break your heart.
I hope so too.
It really does kind of take a toll on you. Just a little bit to have the background knowledge and then just have it fall flat. But in any case, again, thank you all for listening, and we hope to talk to you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Bye.